Hi, this is Matt and welcome to the third episode of the Jalapenos. Today I will bring you guys along on the actual plan that's coming together to move our entire life to the Philippines, which will consist of 5 major categories. One is the destination in the Philippines, which is a very important one, and that is also linked to the other 2 categories of the Philippine part of the plan, which is work. What are we gonna do with work? How are we gonna end things nice and neat with our work here in the Netherlands? And another part is school. School for Theo, very important. And then there's 2 more categories that are more in line with the wrapping up here, which is the preparations. What are we doing to prepare for this trip? Which will be more in the range of smaller things, banking, finance, insurance. How do we prepare that for a move? And the last thing is the actual move. The actual move is a very important part because otherwise this whole plan is for nothing. But also in the actual move, moving our entire lives from here to Philippines, there's very important parts to decide. Well, I'll bring you guys along to my home office because that's a more calm place to talk more about this. And we'll guys see you there. Well, the plan, as I mentioned in the start of the video, the biggest one is the destination, the most important one, because without a destination, where is the actual plan going towards? At the top of the list is close to Theo's school, which is a deciding check in deciding where to move to. Why? There's a lot of things changing for Theo already in his life. The surroundings, he's still in daycare now, so he's not yet in school. And something that's really important to both me and Judy is that when we come there and he will be making friends in school, that we are probably residing close to these friends, so he will be having a good network that he can build up. That's very important to us. And for the rest, we have a list of needs and wishes that go along the lines of being close to Pampanga/Manila. I have a preference not to live in Manila because it's a very, very massive city. Pampanga is great because it's a very international area with a lot of expats and Filipino diverse culture, as well for food. It's a region known in the Philippines for its diverse food market, which is right down the alley of what Judy is very, very talented at. Because you guys, you should try Judy's food. It's amazing. The fact I'm not 150 kilos yet is more than a miracle. And last on the wishes is a place close to where I can work. Is a subject that is the following as well. Work format, me, is a big question mark for now. I'm speaking to some international organizations like the Philippines-Netherlands Business Council. This morning I had a meeting digitally with the DCCP, the Dutch Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines, to see if there's leads on companies that they are in business with or are partners with. Very interesting to speak to them to get a better understanding of how business goes internationally and inside the Philippines. We still have a year. Talks I have are very interesting, but for now it's still a question mark. Work for Judy. This is our opportunity to make her year-long dream come true. Judy is talking about a food truck for years to bring her passion into profession. She's already working in a big restaurant in Rotterdam for now, in the hospital. But she would love to have her own. We tried this once in the Kingsday market and it was very successful selling Judy's food because it's simply delicious and it speaks to the heart. Anyone who likes good food would want her food again. And the Philippines just offers a way better freedom to start a food truck and to be able to actually move that food truck around and being allowed to set up your shop quite flexibly. So that is something that we're definitely aiming for Judy to bring into reality. And I'm very much looking forward for her to have that ability and potentially for you to try her food. School, there is not a big list, but we would prefer an international school. So Theo, besides learning Tagalog and getting an international bunch of friends and Philippine, like we would like him to meet a mixed mixed variety of people, because I think that's good for him to, just as I experienced being in a relationship with Judy, we meet international people, we learn that what we surrounding ourselves with in culture, for example, here in the Netherlands, is not the holy grail. Other cultures have gorgeous aspects of them, and it's good to have a broader view of what is outside the place where you're from. So preferably international school, and the other part is basically preferably not in the city center. People who have been in the Philippines or even from the Philippines might know traffic in the Philippines is a challenge, specifically in city centers, and I wouldn't want to imagine myself every morning going on and about sitting in traffic for an hour to bring the little jalapeno to school. So it would be nice to have the school at the border of or a little bit outside the city, which, as mentioned in the beginning, will also determine where we probably will live. Then there is item number 3 on the list, which is preparing for our trip. And that is a lot of big things, a lot of details. As in preparing for the Filipino part, something that was totally new to me is banking internationally. I had no experience with that whatsoever. I did find out that when you travel outside of Europe, withdrawing money becomes a little bit more of a challenge. When I come to Philippines, for example, I found out that my debit cards, they don't work because the local ATMs don't support the type of debit cards that my bank here in Holland supplies. So, plus, when you do withdraw with your credit card, you find out that you pay about €5 or 250 pesos per withdrawal, which is really expensive because it doesn't depend on the amount you withdraw. So even if you withdraw a relatively small amount of cash, you will still pay the €5 for every withdrawal. So I'm looking into an online bank that offers us flexibility of storing some savings in Europe, which they will be guaranteed by the Europe Bank Deposito. Yet have low withdrawal and transfer fees into pesos, so that will be very advantageous. And for the rest, we are still looking into having a local bank account in Philippines. There's 2 very big banks, BDO and BPI, of which I hear very mixed stories of both as the online banks, but also the local banks in the Philippines have big pros and cons. This coming trip in May, of which the next video will also be about more in detail about what we are planning to check and visit. We are trying to make up our mind in what bank to open in Philippines for more local money business. And for the rest, we will keep a Dutch bank account for whenever we are in Holland or have to do some bank transfers here when we are maybe back with family or friends or something like that. And outside of that, there's still a bunch of other things that I don't really know so much about yet, like Gcash and other ways of paying things in the Philippines that might come in handy to diversify the options you have to pay stuff. Because as most people from Asia probably know, it's still very cash oriented, way more than here. Here, more than half of the payments gets done by phone, like Apple Pay or stuff like that, wireless. In Asia, it's way more cash oriented, specifically in the Philippines. Health insurance, very important because it's a very big peace of mind to be able to say that you're covered with your health. We did request quotes from multiple companies and found out that they are quite aggressive in chasing those quotes. Cigna came up as the one with, I think, as it seems for now, as far as I know, the best price to quality balance. They have very good international coverage except for the USA. But we are not planning to be in the USA much. I actually have never been there before. But in Asia, they have very good coverage as well for Europe and the Netherlands. So the main places where we will be traveling around and residing, they have good coverage, which is very important to us, not only to be well covered while we are in the Philippines, because we're planning on traveling and sometimes coming back to see family. So which brings to the next subject, travel insurance is mostly included, I found out, in the good online banks. The major online banks offer mostly also insurance options that are sometimes even included in the monthly fee you pay for having an upgraded bank account with them, which is very nice. Things to wrap up here as part of preparing work. My work already knows that we are planning, they know about the planned month we are aiming for, as I mentioned earlier, March of 2026. which gives us the opportunity to kind of already plan for wrapping up my position, as in a replacement, and maybe I can even help the replacement get up and start it. The house has to be sold. We met with our financial advisor last week because he will also be our real estate broker for selling the house, because we worked with him for a long time already and have really good experience. He will be selling the place, which takes about 6 months, or at least that's what we're aiming for, to sell it around September this year, which will be 6 months prior to moving in March. And he will also be the one who helps us with cancelling on the house-related insurances, which are mostly fixed via the same broker, as well as the tax, because he's also our tax advisor and financial advisor in general, because you don't want to mess with the Dutch tax office. They are very keen on their tax, as well as when you are leaving. They want to make sure that every euro they could get, they will. So that's something that we will fix with him next year of March, because anyone from here knows that in March is the starting date where you can file for your tax refund of the prior year, which we will be doing. And then after that, later in March, we will be leaving the Netherlands. And for the rest, it's mainly practical subscriptions, internet, phones we will actually keep, because we like to keep our Dutch phone numbers, because most of our network knows us by that phone number, which we will still be able to use for WhatsApp if we keep the number on. But most of the subscriptions here will be ended. And the only thing left that we have to actually file for a permission request is the cancellation of our health insurance, because that's a mandatory thing here in the Netherlands to have. And you will have to request being relieved of that obligation, which we'll have to file for the Dutch National Health Organization, something like that. I can't remember the exact name. I spoke to them last week on the phone. It's quite easy to file for that request, specifically if your reason is you're leaving the country. The actual move is a very simple and short thing. I did request quotes from international shipping companies to send the calculated 3 cubic meters of valuable stuff that we might have around the house here, like a TV and of such sorts. But we found out that these quotes are in and around 6,000 euro for the 3 cubic meters, which makes it make no sense at all to send these items. Which makes the actual move part relatively simple, because we got the good advice from one of the 3 very honest shipping companies actually, which was the Filipino one, balikbayan boxes. Something that Westerners are not familiar with, but a very, very big part of Filipinos are living outside of their own country, abroad, which created a big network of international sending, which in, I guess, Tagalog they call balikbayan. It's a way of sending, it's about this big of boxes that are allowed to contain 60 kilos each, which is really a lot, for about 60 euros from Rotterdam to the Philippines per box. So that means that 1 cubic meter consists out of around 4 boxes, which is only 240 euros compared to the 2,000 euros that I got quoted from the shipping company, which is an insane difference. It will only take a bit longer to arrive, so we will send the less critical items with balikbayan boxes. The rest of our stuff will mostly sell. And that's a wrap up for the plan already. That's most of the plan covered. Let us know if I forgot anything. We're open for suggestions, and the rest of the things that I mentioned earlier in this video will be checked in May. If you have anything that we really should check in May, in and around Pampanga, let us know. We are open for suggestions. Thanks for joining along. I hope you subscribe and follow us for the rest of the journey. See you next time. Bye bye.